welcome to this episode 178 of Frame and Reference. You're about to drop into a conversation between me, Kenny McMillan, and my guest Judd Overton, DP of the Peacock series Laid. Enjoy. Did you watch the last Showgirl?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
So I'm watching it and I'm like, this actress looks really fucking familiar. But where have I seen it? It's the chick from The Killer or Totally Killer.
Oh, Kiernan? Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's awesome.
Yeah, it was just funny. But
she's popping up all over the place. So she's it's great.
I remember liking her in Totally Killer. She's got like a really good comedic timing.
Yeah. Yeah, she's very and hard work. I mean, she's grown up on television and in the industry, so yeah, she just gets it. She's really a pro for her young years.
Yeah. But what have you been up to since then? It feels like since I last spoke to you, it was just like, I'm gonna take a breather and then Hulu comedy.
There's been a whole lot of it's been a funny year. So really lucky, feeling really blessed to have this project Laid come up when I know a lot of people haven't had projects. We went up to Vancouver to shoot, which was awesome. And again, going back there after Totally Killer was great. So I got to reconnect with some of the same crew, different stages. But Vancouver's fantastic. It's really really great place to work and really pro crew up there, and it's a really film friendly place to shoot. So if apart from the rain, the rain's an issue, but as long as you got some studio to kind of duck and weave around that, you're pretty good.
Yeah. So was it? It's funny because I was watching it over my girlfriend's shoulder, and then like hey, do you want to talk to Judd? I was like, I love Judd. Let's go back. But it's a different look than Totally Killer for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's the same director, so there's that.
Is it?
And
I didn't do my research.
Yeah. So Nanachka Khan is the director, and it's like the third, maybe fourth project I've shot with her now. So it's always great to have that relationship because it just means you can take more risks and have a bit of fun. You don't sort of have to be too careful in what you suggest. I mean, obviously some things you make a pitch and it doesn't always land, but that's okay too. You kind of work it out together. So that was really a fun part of taking the project on board, working with Nach again. And it is a different, it's a very different look to the film, which is a good thing. I always like to kind of stretch myself and try to do some different stuff, but also there is some vibe in there, like just doing a straight rom-com, I think isn't what I'm looking for. But that having that little bit of darkness and having the opportunity to do some jump scares and some gags, and that's what kind of piqued my interest on a script level. Just turning the pages, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be something else. We're gonna push people a little bit out of their comfort zone and not make it just a network rom-com kind of show.
Yeah. So talk to me about the pre-production process, because I imagine, with a film, I feel like it's straightforward. And usually with television shows, a lot of times there'll be more than one DP, but you shot the whole thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I've been fortunate in the last couple of shows that I've done have been that way. Like Killing It, the 2 seasons I did of that show were the same kind of 8 and 10 episodes that I shot myself. I guess the difference is almost like you're prepping a bit like a feature, especially if you've got, Killing It was different because it had multiple directors. But on this show, we only had 2 directors. So Nanachka did 6 of the 8 episodes, and Mo Marable did the other 2 episodes, and I worked with Mo before as well. So it was kind of really great to, it's just so much easier to have those creative discussions and to kind of, you've got a jumping off point. So it's really great. You can just you can get straight into it, which you have to do in television. I think we had 5 weeks of prep for, and I want to say 8 or 9 week shoot, something like that. So, it wasn't a lot of time, but you end up kind of prepping it, especially with the one director, almost like a feature, and you kind of work your way through it. And each episode builds on itself, and you want to have that continuity. And obviously, having myself there for all the episodes, I can kind of oversee that. And and we're shooting pretty much in order. We block shoot, but we're just doing 2 episodes at a time. So you kind of know where you're going. You know that you can build up and build up, and then things like when these deaths start happening, you can see the scale of it. You're like, okay, well, this is going to be a surprise, and this one's going to be a little bit bloody, and then this one's you can sort of ramp people up to the end, which is totally bonkers. So that's kind of a fun way to approach it.
Yeah. And so were you what were the discussions like around sort of tone, because it is not gross, but a little gory or whatever at times. It's not a straight up rom-com. Sure. How are you guys finding that balance? And were you looking at any other films or television to kind of be like, it's a little more like this, a little less like that?
I think in terms of the leaping off point was that rom-com tone. We really wanted to kind of trade on everyone's fond memories of all those, when Harry Met Sally and all those kind of classic romance films. But even in looking at those, and even when we were being similar to those, we knew that we were going to take a side turn. So we started off down that path of like, okay, so the overall thing needs to be warm, and it needs to bring people in. It needs to be, naturalistic but heightened. All those kind of catchphrases that you hear a lot, in television. It's like make the people look pretty. So we started off down that path, and then it was really about how we got into the balancing of the tone between the scary bits. And I mean, Nach is amazing for that, and you can see it from Totally Killer, where she's balancing, a slasher with a teen comedy. So it's that same kind of vibe, albeit different subject matter. But this, it was really, let's balance the romance with this kind of true crime podcast kind of world that is so popular, so contemporary at the moment. So we're really updating the romance to include, what if you're dating a serial killer? What's going on here? And it's making a real sort of mystery and a whodunit kind of thing. That kind of really keeps the tempo going throughout the episode.
Yeah, and there's also like kind of an element of like, is it just, at least the way I took it was like, is it fate? Is it like, does she have a mystical body that is doing this? It's really fun.
We kind of and we go down all of those, quite random tangents. Like you kind of get to explore all of those. I think Zasha Mamet, who plays AJ, who plays the sort of the buddy character, is a really great kind of device and foil for that. Like she keeps it really straight, but she's also like getting kind of interested by all of this death and murder. And whereas Stephanie's character, is kind of our entrance point to the audience's entrance point to it. And, you do feel her freaking out and getting scared at times. And, you kind of go on the ride with her. You see the romance swell, and then kind of like the bag comes on the head, and it's like, where am I? What's going on? Like she really does get kind of in the moment scared.
Yeah. So the one thing that I noticed about it is it's like the sort of base look is incredibly high key. And so I imagine, was that, were you able to achieve that without like a crap ton of gear? Because in my head, it's like you must have had lights just everywhere. Or were you able to kind of achieve that in a more elegant way?
So I mean, essentially we're shooting an ensemble rom-com. And our stage work was primarily the apartment. We built the apartment. So that's kind of her bedroom, kitchen, living area, and a bit of a hallway. And then we also built Richie's apartment, which comes into play, I think it's episode 3. He sort of, 3, 4, he sort of starts to come into it. Start of 4, all takes place at his, at his apartment. We knew we had to build those because they were regular places, and they were also, it's just the page count we needed to get through in those. So those were lit, more like a traditional, we had, a backdrop, day-night backdrop outside, and we kind of lit it as a stage, we had a few cool tricks where we would have, there would be like a softbox in the roof, which we wouldn't really use much, but we had panels that could flip out and we could drop pipes in and, kind of, if the blocking changed or if we needed to get a light in on someone, we could kind of, get it in pretty quickly. That being said, we didn't want it to feel, Hollywood or super, super lit. We wanted to always have it, especially for Ruby's character, having the framing just being a little bit broken, a little bit off center, so that the audience doesn't feel like she's, winning from the start. You kind of give that little bit, just a bit of uncertainty to her. And we did the same with the lighting. We would have some hot pools behind them or on their bodies or something like that, but they would very rarely find, their perfect sort of glamour light. They're always kind of a little bit, half a stop down, that sort of thing against, the windows that can blow, and we can get, make it feel like there's some daylight, make it feel real in the space. And then we, obviously the rest of the show, we had to shoot on locations, practical locations. A big one, obviously the wedding. We have the wedding in episode 2, which is, massive, and we're shooting it during summer in Vancouver. So, you've got about 5 hours of shootable light in that environment. So, it's just logistics. It's really working out where all the lighting rigs are going to go. And you've never got quite enough light. You've always got to bring a little bit in, but as much as possible, I tend, my approach generally in locations is to see where the light naturally comes from or would come from, and try to mimic that, or not try to force it too much, just try to make it feel, again, like a heightened version of its, a location playing itself.
Sure. So in prep, was it, obviously you're scouting, you're figuring all that out, but was it all pretty rote, or were you getting a general idea, then like once you get there, figuring out what you're dealing with? Oh no, we've got overcast today or whatever the fuck.
I mean, I always try to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Like if again, shooting in Vancouver, we'd always have some kind of, fly swatters if we're doing day work, or rain protection if we're doing night work, because it can turn really quickly there. But also the crew are super used to that environment. All
Right.
of the fabrics that they use are plastic and are waterproof and things like that. All their crew gear, you see the crew gear come out and they're just like ready for battle. They've got all the best wet weather protection, that sort of thing. So you can really, the sound might be affected, but the number of times we've kept shooting scenes, and just gone in for close-ups under overheads, and you can kind of match the lighting, and obviously, digital grade helps a lot just to, to help you out there. But yeah, I think in terms of the process for scouting, like I like to be on hand. So even when there's pre-scouting going on, I'm either getting photos sent through, on the smoke files or whatever the locations are sending through, or I try to be there, even if I've got to, fly myself up, or, just to be there, because it's so important when you're choosing a location, because it's twofold. It's a character, especially some of these main locations are so important just in terms of what the story is, and me getting into the head of what the director's thinking, what the production designer's thinking, having those early conversations when there's not too many of the crew around, so we can kind of walk through each other's eyes and see and talk and, kind of make the mistakes before there's any real weight on it or any, time pressure. And the other thing is, just from a logistical point of view, if we turn up at a location and it's a football field, it's, we're going to start talking to the producer, talking to grips, there's going to be some heavy equipment going in. Can we even get that equipment in here? And we weren't the kind of production that wanted to do that. We wanted to kind of keep it, we had a good budget, but we wanted to keep it as lean as possible, just so that we could be flexible. And just because it's a comedy, there's improvisation, if you get too locked in, you suddenly find, oh no, we want to turn over there, but now we're looking at the whole unit base, so we can't really, we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot. So trying to keep it, trying to protect ourselves even at those early scouting stages, for sure.
Yeah. Did you see shit, what was it? The Fall Guy.
Yep, sure did.
I was just imagining. Yeah. What's that?
They shot it in Australia, so I've got a bunch of friends that worked on it.
Oh, cool. Because I was going to say they must have had the best time ever just turning around and going, oh, we can just shoot camp, who cares? Like on a lot of those when they're actually shooting the movie.
For sure.
I'm sure they were just like, why bring in production design when we can just shoot it?
You have your tent right there.
Yeah, that's actually Video Village.
Yeah.
I've realized recently that I don't ask enough pre-production questions, because it's not something like, for me, anything that I shoot ends up being relatively simple. It's either corporate stuff or it's like one location, that I'll just get, does this work? And I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out. So what is your like pre-production toolkit? Is it just like wandering around with Artemis and Sunseeker and just seeing what's happening, or is it, how involved does it get for you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you need to do there. I mean, I have I don't kind of refer to it anymore, but I have a list of pre-production questions to ask and location questions to ask, and all those sort of things. Just a checklist, really, so that I know that I'm not going to kind of end up with egg on my face, or the production's not going to get slowed down, really, when we get there. So, and I think you just add to that list as you go on, and as you see things, getting bigger and bigger. And then at a certain point, you got to ask the question: is like, are we getting bigger than this needs to be? For an eighth of a page, those sort of questions. So, I guess that's always in the back of my mind as well. Is where's the best bang for your buck? You want to make sure that. I need to make sure I've got a good understanding of what the director wants, showrunner wants, and what those kind of darling scenes are, or what those real pivotal moments are, because you want to make sure you're spending, time and money on those, rather than, wasting money or wasting time on something, building a massive setup that's really not going to help the production, or that isn't. Sometimes the location or the schedule changes, so you need to move that, and it doesn't make sense to shoot that together with that anymore. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff, working with the ADs and kind of, having a plan A, B through X, so that, this is the best case scenario. This is what we'd love to achieve. But then when it all turns to pot, you can kind of, you can still salvage it. You can still find a way through, because you've also thought about, oh, actually, this could also work with that. And sometimes those things come up, those little happy accidents, and you find yourself shooting something in a much better way, even though you're doing it with less resources. You can sort of find some little things by accident that are actually, that's exactly what we were meant to do. It just works for the project.
Yeah. Obviously trust is a huge part of it, but do you find yourself ever, not just with this project, but finding one of those moments where you're like, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, and but maybe the director or the producer, whoever, is like really in love with some idea, and you have to be like, please listen to me. We don't need that.
I mean, often if you're looking at a one-liner or a schedule, and you're seeing that there's a certain amount of time allocated for something, suddenly you're looking at 3 or 4 hours for that. Like, that's half my day. Is that what we really want to be? It's just a conversation, because you might not know, the director might have a vision for it, which is very specific, or there might be, what we do in television a lot are alts, so you get your script and you're like, oh, it's a walk in the park. We've only got half a page today. It's like, ha ha ha, here's another 10 pages of alts. Excuse me. You've got to go, you've also got to get through, and you've got to get through in all your coverage. So, I think it's important to keep having conversations through prep. And even as things change on the day, keep having those conversations like, this is what we're going for, right? Like, have a plan, but then be prepared to throw that plan away or change it. Don't get too, look, there's certain elements that are like key images. One of ours was, the Kiss in the Rain sequence. And it was big, it's a massive thing. We're locking off a whole city street. It's, shooting nights, massive wet down rain towers, trying to get lights hanging out of windows, and where do we light it from, all that sort of stuff. But it was such a key moment for the rom-com of it all, for the romance of it all. We knew we had to execute that, exactly to the vision. So, you just have to kind of prioritize those and have those good conversations. And I think, as you say, trust is important, because you can have a sort of a free exchange with your director, or, with the producers or the showrunners, about so everyone's trying to play the same game. Everyone's trying to work towards the same goal.
Mm. Yeah, the scale of the show really is larger than you'd expect.
Yeah. It's not your the classic half-hour comedy. It's not like a it's all shot in the lot. It's not that kind of show. So yeah, Nutch really likes practical locations, so that has an impact in it.
Mm.
But also we built wall to wall in our stage. We have one stage for shooting in. Construction were in that space for a bunch of the time as well, and we lined up with stages. We had little pop-up fly sets and psychologist office, and did some car work, some blue screen work in there as well. So you kind of use every little corner of the space you're allowed. Yeah, I mean, it would have been great to build more of it, but
Sure.
It also feels like it's real. It makes it feel more lived in. I mean, in Australia we do a majority of our stuff in set. Sorry, not in sets. They very rarely build sets unless you're on like one of the kind of soap opera company shows. They have standing sets and all lit from the rig and all from the grid, all that sort of thing. But most sort of short run shows, that sort of 10 hep series, even 20 hep series, and indie films, all those sort of things are practical locations. They just don't have money for a build unless you're going to burn it down or do something crazy with it.
Right. So, and you were also shooting 3 cameras?
Yeah, not the whole time. Like we still, it's a single camera show, and we definitely lead with trying to find the right angle. Especially, we want to make sure the ladies are looking great, and all the sort of the things you do. That being said, there is a lot of improvised, a lot of comedy. So we do cross shoot quite a lot. And then anytime we had the ensemble, or anytime we had like a bigger, bigger scenes with lots of extras and things like that, we'd fly a third camera in for those.
Sure. You actually brought up some that I think is important to touch on, which is like the beauty lighting. I think a lot of times, especially for indie filmmakers, not everyone chooses a rom-com or potentially doesn't have actors of a certain vintage in there where you need to do your buddy a favor, as it were. Do you have any what are you doing to make sure everyone's looking their best? Because it's one thing to just get big old soft source, put it near them, but usually there's a little more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this wasn't a show where we could do the kind of single source through the window gag, unfortunately. It would have been great. But no, I think, our approach to this was, I mean, firstly, it's back to pre-production. It's testing and making sure you can get at least your number 1, number 2, on camera and have a little look. And I mean, I do a lot of trawling through the internet and seeing either photos that they've had done or other shows that films that they've worked on, whatever, to kind of see, okay, what's good lighting, what's bad lighting for them. So at least I've got a leaping off point for, I don't want to, let's not do that. And I can show that to the gaffer and say, we can, do a bit better than this.
Right.
And then it's also about, you've got a schedule. So trying to find the way to look after everyone and make everyone feel appreciated at the same time as hitting your 20 pages, 10 pages, whatever the day, sort of has for you. I mean, we were using a lot of, like the what do you call them? Helios tubes with the
Oh, sure.
the pool noodle on them, those sort of things, or the sock. We can put a couple of the tubes inside a sock, and we just have those on a stand for when we needed to get in close. Often when we're shooting, we would kind of shoot our mid shots first. I've sort of, especially doing this kind of improvised work, or where there's a lot of bolts and things like that. I've been stitched up before by, you shoot this amazing master shot, and then once they get into the words, you sort of find out, oh, actually, no, that's not, they should end over here. And so, so you end up redoing your work again. So we definitely, try to start in some form of coverage, and I'm lighting the space so that actors can go, wherever they want within certain, reasons. I can obviously help them out if they sort of go into a dark corner. I can sort of suggest or offer they move a little closer, or we can change something. But then once we get into the close-ups, then I'll just try to supplement that. And, some people have sort of, sunken eyes or need a little bit of little polyboards under chins and things like that. So I just sort of have all those tricks and just have the team standing by to bring that in once we go into the close-ups.
Yeah. You actually just made me, because like obviously portraiture is where you'll find a lot of that sort of beauty lighting. And it didn't really occur to me like, oh yeah, you can steal, this is going to sound so dumb. You can steal a lot of those techniques, which I don't think usually if you get someone who's a photographer who then jumps into cinematography, their stuff looks too lit. Mm-hmm. So stealing it the other way. Yeah,
I mean, it's also knowing what you've got time for in post, like staying switched onto the project. And Siggy First Store has been my colorist for a number of years. And I know that, time permitting in the grade, we can do a little cosmetic pass. And if I need to, just ping someone's eyes or, just change the contrast a little bit because it's, it's a bit heavy, we're shooting raw. So we've got plenty of information in there. And obviously I try to get the LUT and the CDLs as close as possible. So the editorial, everyone can be looking at, at least the colors should be true to what they are. But then once you get in for the grade, we probably spend, it's about 4 hours per half hour. I think the shows are all running about 30 or 35 minutes each episode. So we probably spend about 4 hours per episode. Sometimes a little more if it's a super complex thing. But you know what you can do. So if I'm running out of time on set, it's not ideal, but we can fix that.
Yeah, the two I color a lot of my own stuff, and the two tools now that I have a computer that can handle it, that I found in Resolve that are shockingly helpful. Well, not only helpful, but just like invisible enough is there's in Resolve, there's like the beauty tool, like you can smooth up scan, do like high frequency,
little defocus.
Yeah. And it's even better than that too, because I used to just have to do like drag the midtone detail down, but now it's like the skin texture stays there. It's a lot more like high frequency separation and stuff. But then also there's a relight tool in Resolve where it's like, I needed the key to be a little hotter. You can like, instead of just bringing it up with a window, you can put like a virtual light bulb in there and it'll operate roughly the same with like a depth map. It's like the post tools have gotten so advanced and helpful, to get you out of a spot.
I mean, and look, I think there's always a compromise for using those tools. Like there's going to be some give and take with it, and it's obviously better to get it in camera if you can. But if you we're always pressed for time, so it's one of those things to know those tools. To know what like there's the AI tools in Resolve are incredible, and having that access to that and sort of knowing in the back of your head, it's like it's gonna be okay. We've got this. We can move on. It's pretty important.
Yeah, definitely. Earlier on in my career, just discovering that windows were a thing.
Yeah,
this is relatively new. Like, within the past 15 years or so. Probably less than that, where it became actually accessible to most people, aside from, having to get a base light set up or whatever.
And I can remember when you had, 5 windows and you're like, okay, how much can I do within this one power window?
Right.
Now it's like, the sky's the limit, but it's all taking time and money and zeros and ones. And, obviously if you can get it in camera, that's the way to go.
Yeah. So it's not really for like the base look. It's not really a heavy look. Were you designing like one shooting LUT and like what went into that, or were there multiple LUTs for like some of the more
we basically had darker spots? We basically had one LUT, and I tend to again it's all just through experience, but I tend to stick with the one camera LUT, and then do CDLs and stills to communicate what the changes or what the look is on the day. I've just found it's a lot easier to communicate because, I mean, in this case, we have a post house doing our dailies up in Vancouver, and then that flies down to LA, or they stream it down to LA. And then there's somebody else, tweaking and prepping for editorial in LA. So there's a lot of places where it could get communication breakdown. And I'll usually get stills overnight. So the first thing I'll wake up in the morning and check the stills and make sure everything, nothing's freaked out before it gets put up to pics and the world can see it. I found that keeping that process as simple as possible is the way to go. And then if we do anything different, if we've got a different looking scene, I'll let everyone know, and we'll pass on through the DIT specific stills. This we're going for a more, this is more bloomy because we're going down this path, or this is this is our genre tip. Especially the start of episode 4 where Stephanie's basically been kidnapped and she comes in and we're in this thriller backlit, light over the shoulder really dark noir-y kind of moment. And then as the scene develops and she starts to kind of realize, oh, actually, I'm not tied up. Oh, it's just, what's going on? Oh, it's just Richie. Oh, well. It was a really fun scene to do and we can play with it, but you don't want them to try to grade that out. They need to know that it starts dark and then through the scene, it's progressive. It shouldn't all look like one LUT or one look, because it's built into the storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. The being able to kind of genre hop on one project has got to be, you kind of did it with Totally Killer a little bit, but that's got to be pretty fun to be like, all right, today is serial killer day, or whatever.
Yeah. Of course, as it is that in the one day you're doing, 37 different, moments. So you have to keep good notes and kind of, keep your head in the game in terms of what you're actually up to that day. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And that's what kind of brought me to the project again, is just, the versatility, not just doing, not just getting stuck in that straight, a rehashing of a rom-com, the fact that we got to really have some fun with it and the actors were all on board for that and really kind of contemporizing and keeping it really, really modern and fun.
Yeah. And I know you used a couple different lens sets, eh?
Yeah. So for the big shift, once we found we shot with the Zeiss Supreme Primes.
That's nice.
They're a really nice lens, but not too affecting. Again, just slightly warm, really, very contemporary, not too sharp, but just warm and lovely. Like it really was an inviting kind of look once we sort of threw them on the camera. What we wanted to do was go a step heavier, to really take you into Ruby's point of view for all these rom-com moments. So we tried all the things. We were testing at multiple equipment houses. We were getting lenses shipped in from all over the place. We were hanging bits of glass in front of things and putting, plastic donuts on and filter. We tried everything, and really went down the path as well. Spherical, anamorphic. What's going to be the look. And in the end, I love anamorphic is amazing format to shoot. Not often you get to shoot it in television. Sure. And we were a 2-to-1 project, so we're not sort of, going the full aspect ratio of that anyways. But once we've discovered, we went with the Cooke full frame anamorphic lenses, and we carried just, I think we had 2 or 3 lenses that we could carry for the run of show, just for those moments where we kind of go inside Ruby's brain, and really get those rom-com moments, or sometimes those sort of scared moments, or what the kind of beats. And the thing about the Cookes was that, again, just such a for an anamorphic lens, they're so sharp. They're right. So they had a similar sort of warmth to the Zeiss. But they don't have the funk, like they don't, a lot of people go for these kind of contemporary modern anamorphic lenses that have, all about the flares and, obviously the classic Panavision, flares. And these really don't have that. You can kind of push a lot of light into them and you're still getting all the bokeh in the background, but you don't get that, artifice that sort of suddenly makes you feel like you're in another film, or you're sort of gagging the audience. We wanted to keep them still in the same project, still feel like they're in the same place, but we've just turned it up a bit. We're just heightening it. So, the soft roll off the center, we sort of cut to a center framing. Often we do a little slider push in, like a 4-foot slide in towards Stephanie. And we also did like some fun stuff where we had, a wall of fairy lights that we, kind of use for her eye lights. So when you get into her eyes, you start seeing the little sparkles, it's really just really ramping up that kind of rom-com moment. And then, either going with it, or quite often then breaking it. And it's like, no, it's not the wrong moment you thought it was.
Yeah. So you're framing the anamorphic for that 2-to-1 extra.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you find that, because a lot of times I know that anamorphics, well, not all of them, but I have this set of Laowas that are like incredibly clean throughout the whole frame. But did you find that you were losing some of that edge funness, or is that not really?
It was just perfect. Like, we looked at so many lenses, like some really old funky, even some other Cooks. We just went through the gamut of lenses, and what I found was, it was basically the center third on the Cooks was really quite true. It was really still quite sharp, and the contrast was matching, to the Zeiss. And then it was really, all the funk happened off to the sides, and you start to see that little, the world sort of wraps around her a little bit, and the fall off is just really beautiful. So we throw as many little highlights in the background so they'd all sort of sparkle and twist around, and we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, have you seen Marcus's lens flare database?
I haven't seen the one yet. No, I heard him talking about it, but I'll go check that out.
It's really helpful, because like one thing that we were talking about, I was hanging out with him at NAB, was that part of it is just like, oh, isn't it fun to see lens flares? But also now you can see, like, because of how flares are physically, you can see all the elements in a lens and see kind of pick apart like what each lens does, outside of the flares and stuff. It's a really fascinating tool.
Yeah. I mean, I'll often use, like the shared grid, or Old Fast Glass did that one.
Yeah, that big test.
Back. And, that's a fantastic jumping off point, when you start looking at lenses for a project. And excuse me, like, I'll always jump on that and just throw up a few sets, and it sort of shows you in the same setting, the same, model in the middle. It's like, it's going to cut your prepping time in half, because you can sort of start a conversation and you can show that to the director, and, do we want to do this? But then I feel like all my testing isn't charts, and, like, it's important to know that information, especially, for the focus puller and for, people who are making the sets work. But in terms of choosing the lens, I think it's more about shooting it in your environment and shooting it as close to, like setting up a test. And I always try to do this as early in the prep processes as I can, setting up something and, getting the wardrobe costume department in to sort of put anything on that they want to, or, like really using it as a kind of, even if sometimes it's a pre-shoot, you might even use that footage, who knows? But kind of getting the lenses that you're thinking about on the actual actors, in kind of an environment, or as many of those elements as you can bring together, that's when you really start, it just alleviates so much of the pressure, because you've got the director there, you've got, producers there, you can kind of get everyone excited, and they can actually see, they can take home a little photo from the day and see, oh, yes, this is, our film's starting, guys, so it's going to look like. So yeah, I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah. So talk to me about your sort of testing process, because like you said, you're not doing the classic, someone sitting in a chair with here's the lens and then the twinkle lights in the back. Like, what are you looking for when you're?
I will do that. Like I'll definitely, like, the big flares is, how lens flares is an important thing for sure. And colors, but I'll also try to, like, if I know I'm going to have a set, I'll try to get some swatches of that. Like, I'll try to have something that's, representative of the world I'm going to be shooting. And if I'm going to be doing everything, is set in a swamp, then you've got to go outside, you've got to have trees, and you've got to see what, different, lighting scenarios. Like, if you've got to, I need to shoot these guys front lit. So what's that going to look like? And what fabrics am I going to need to carry with me to kind of be able to get away with that? Again, it's, like looking at the worst, prepping for the worst case scenario and then hoping for the best, just make sure I've kind of done my due diligence to, to find a way through it, so that if we are in a pinch, I'm like, it's going to be okay. We're going to be all right with that.
Yeah. All right. And when you're looking at, when you say swatches and stuff, we talking like just how the camera and the lens combo like reproduces color and texture? Or is there something else going on in there?
Yeah. And also, like, if I'm trying to do something in camera, if we're futzing with the colors a bit, I want to make sure that that's, it's working for skin tones as well as working for, for the backgrounds. Often you find, especially if you're doing a lot of mixed skin tones and an ensemble cast, you need to know which way things, you're going to need to take a little bit of red out of someone's skin. How's that going to affect the world or the set? So yeah, it's doing as many of those little kind of tests, things that, pitfalls that I've had before, I guess. Trying to test as many of those as I can up front.
Was there a specific reason to choose the LF, or was it, familiarity or maybe a Hulu mandate or anything?
No, it's I love it. Our show's on Peacock. Lands on Peacock, by the way.
Oh, I thought. Why did I think it was Hulu?
It's all good.
My bad, Peacock.
But yeah, so it's just a format that I love, and obviously large sensor, small body, is a winner for me.
Sure.
Not that we're always trying to drop the backgrounds out, or like we'll try to shoot at a reasonable stop, like a sort of a deeper stop, to try to see some of the practical locations that we're shooting in. But yeah, I just really love it. I mean, we've tested the ARRI-35, and obviously people are getting some great results with the shooting on the Venice 2 and using the Rialto kind of set up there. But we found on Totally Killer, we ended up stripping down the LF, and it's basically like a little football size rig you can get it down to if you take the batteries and stuff off, and it's super versatile. So I'm a fan of it. But that being said, it's all about the right, that was the right camera for this project, and we've got a lot of kind of cosmetic. We want all of our sort of actors to look good. Each project's different, so you test and shoot the camera that works for that.
Yeah, I think it was a DP, might have been a camera op. Pretty sure it was a DP. Invented this really great belt setup that moved the battery. I think you could put two batteries that would, like, when one died, it would automatically switch to the other one with no downtime. And the Teradek would all be belt mounted, so you could just have the LF, or I think it was initially for the Mini, but just as absolutely small as possible. And I've certainly he sells like a well-made belt version. I cobbled one together, but it's like a great little, I know some people run like backpacks and stuff, but
yeah, I've seen backpacks, and I've seen the Caslo who prepped this job and Totally Killer had like a little kind of like a metal vest that had exactly that. You could go your Teradek, and basically takes all the gunk off it, and you probably just got like one single channel for focus, and you just keep it as small. We kind of called it our flight rig, but we didn't use it so much on this project, but we definitely got into it on Totally Killer for all of those kind of chasing through. Like it was fantastic. It's really, really nimble.
Yeah. Is there a kind of a lighting setup on this show that sticks out as like something that was particularly difficult to achieve, and then maybe one that was you basically set it up and went, oh, that looks great, roll it?
I mean, I guess one of the scenes that was a bit involved, and it was kind of one of my favorite scenes because it's kind of the biggest jump scare of the show, is when we go to the tattoo parlor. And it's really the first time there's some hope. It's one of these kind of we're going there with a positive vibe, and which is going to save this, save Aubrey. And it's one of the most lit daylight. We didn't do a lot of establishers, we didn't do a lot of exteriors at all. We kind of made that decision that we just want to not in like a multicam cut hard to the words, right, but definitely in a way that like kept us connected with the characters. So this, we have a drive up, and it's a bright sunshiny day, and we pan over and we see her, slow-mo shots of her cleaning the window and all this sort of stuff. So that was really just your classic kind of controlling daylight. Like we weren't really lighting that scene as much as just scrimming it, and we had some lifts and things like that just to kind of extend our day and extend the awning over the top of them, so that we could shoot all the coverage we needed to. Once we actually get inside the into the tattoo parlor, we actually really broke that scene down, because we had an emotional one of the most emotional moments in the film. This sort of conversation between Ruby and Aubrey, and they're really kind of getting to the base of what her issue is, like what her problem is, and she's her mum's died and her dad's left, and we're sort of getting to this moment. In the background, while this is going on, there's like a tussle building outside the window, and it's like a bright daylight scene, and it's like, what's going on there? And we wanted to shoot it in a way that we could choose when we were focused on what part of it. We didn't want to have to be forced to a rack that we didn't want in post. So what we ended up doing was shooting it with a blue screen and recording all of our foreground, getting all the emotions, getting all the drama, and then taking them out and filming all of the outside, so that we could basically choose the best time of day for our outside work to shoot that. Again, not really lit, just available light, just right time of day. And then obviously our lit, the women against the blue screen moment. And then what that really did to us is it kept it subtle. It didn't distract you or distract you from the real emotions that were going on. And then when suddenly someone pulls a gun and there's a pop and the blood splatters across the back wall, it's such a shock, because you just go from this emotional, heartfelt moment into basically a gore fest. And it's a real, it's what, I think it was really successful. Lots of planning to put it all together. And it's subtle, but I think it really paid off, with that effect it has on the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually brings how much VFX, because there's also like, I suppose, stunt work in it.
For sure.
How much of that were you balancing? Were you able to do most of it in camera?
We always tried to do everything in camera. Even the initial the car knock in the first episode, so the first death we see, we knew that had to be big, and we wanted it to feel real.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of coordination. That was the first thing. Even when I read the script, I was like, how we, what is this? How do you see it? How are we going to do that? Yeah, exactly. But of course, it wasn't a day, because we had a bunch of other work to shoot, and we had probably, 20 minutes to shoot that sequence, but we worked it all out. I'd left, like I was filming it in my driveway here, getting my wife to walk around the car, and, like, is this the angle? Is this what we're talking? We wanted to do it as a one, so it really, if you never cut away, you don't see, you never expect it. You don't expect what's going to happen. So the fact that as we walk around the car, and as he walks, he sort of flips them off as he goes past the window, and as he passes past the A panel, it's kind of a cowboy switch to the stunt guy, who then gets taken out by a car and thrown through the window, and blood and splattered and windshields smashed. So it was a real, that was obviously VFX, working with stunts, working with grips, working with camera. Everyone had to be really in sync on that day. And even just scheduling, we made sure that I left the B camera operator, Chris Gibbons, was there. We had a little Scorpio Mini head that we stuck through the back of the car. Vehicles, we had to choose the right vehicle. We sort of had a station wagon that we could actually get sort of a crane arm through, so that we could do this basically 180-degree shot of the guy walking all the way around the car, getting taken out, and then landing back in the windshield. So it was a bunch of fun. I think we did it they gave us 6 windshields, and I think we did it in 4. So, it was like, it was great. It just, it can work, like if you plan it out, obviously things can go wrong, but it was a really great sort of pat on the back for everyone to execute that, in time and not go over us,
Counting your shots in windshields is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's a constant thing. It's like, how many do you think you're going to need? I mean, even like when we chainsaw the guy to death, it's like, how many t-shirts do you think we're going to need to chainsaw? And does it need to go every time? Yeah, you're always being asked that question. Yeah, always ask for a few more than you need, but yeah, hope you can do it in less.
What do you do with the extra? Do you sell the windshields back? And you're like, hey, we got 2 more. You call the wrecking house and just have them take them back.
I mean, I don't know. I think probably the vehicles guys have a little, stash storage. Yeah, a little storage full of all the things they didn't use. Yeah.
Did I read correctly that you were using the Module A tuners on this thing?
Yeah. So we used that for we had this big sequence. It was actually, I think it was the last thing, or like one of the last things we shot. And it's a scene where Brad, who's sort of Ruby's workmate, he's telling us a story, and this is kind of when we get into the curse of it all, and the kind of the witchcraft, and So he's telling us a story which is like, oh, I just went for a few drinks after this work event. And then you see the telling of the story in, through his eyes, and it's, a nightmare hellscape. So we really wanted it to be a really quite confronting, super wide lens, distorted view. And again, we went back to all of the testing we did, it's on the anamorphic lenses. We looked at a bunch of other wide angle lenses, but the detuner just happened to give, the effect that we were after, which was keeping him in foreground, like keeping the subject kind of clear, but then, really wonkying up the background and really distorting, blurring the lights. We didn't want like a drug effect or,
Right.
multiple image or things like that. We tested a lot of that stuff as well, but it just didn't quite feel right. We still wanted to, let that performer have his moment. And then we filmed it all on Steadicam. So we didn't really know where he was going to go. He would spin around and around, and we wandering down this street. We had to kind of light the whole street because, we knew the spots that he had to get to, but, we're shooting it again. It's a 5-hour night. So we had to do the sequence where they're walking up to the bar. We shoot the outside of the bar. Then we go race inside, shoot a little sequence inside. Art department have pulled everything out. Then we come outside for night and we do this whole walk down, 3 city blocks. It was a lot of fun, but it was, again, came together really well.
Yeah. It's funny when those, obviously, a handful of years ago when people really started using like photo lenses for cinema use, and everything was pretty clean and stuff. There was always like, oh, put some diffusion on it to take the digital edge out. And I was like, it doesn't. I fell into the trap. I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. And the more I used it, I was like, it just makes it look fuzzy. Like it doesn't, take the edge off necessarily. It just makes it fuzzy to steal. Ellen Curris told me that and I couldn't unsee it. And that was like episode 6 of this podcast 5 years ago. I was like, oh, Ellen, she got in my head. Right. But like those modulate tuners did seem to, I tested them out. And do you remember which one you used? Was it like
it's the L2, I think is the one I want to say. It's kind of like the more,
was it the Baltar look?
I think it's the more Baltar version. Yeah.
That one definitely had the most effect. One of them,
some of them were pretty subtle, and especially the 3, I think it was, which was like the sort of anamorphizer one. Didn't really wasn't doing much for me. So we were winding them right up. But I think what's great about them is that you can put them on your other lens set, so you don't have to carry a full set of lenses. And we had some budget on this. You've never got enough, but I think for most productions to actually have to run 2 full sets of lenses or, that sort of thing is gets expensive, to carry that. And that you're always getting, can we send something back or, so having.
Call Geslow.
Yeah, exactly. So having a device like that could just kind of, funk it up enough. It's not going to take it away. It doesn't feel like you're, again, throwing it into a totally different movie. Yeah. But you can actually use your same glass and, nothing else really changes for the camera assistance or for the process. So yeah, that was really valuable for us.
Yeah. And they're not terribly expensive little tools. Like I'm sure the line producer wasn't like, no.
Exactly.
I usually ask at the beginning, but I just jump straight into it. But have you been watching anything yourself? The show's been out for a minute. Normally, a lot of times I'll get people on these like press tours and they're like, I haven't slept. I haven't watched a thing.
I've been seeing a bit of stuff. So, I watched Nickel Boys the other day. I think
Nickel Boys is good.
Yeah, that was, it's a tough watch, but, they committed to the bit. So I really, it's a lot of good stuff in there. The other thing, I just finished watching that Senna show on Netflix where they used all the volume for the driving stuff. And that was really impressive. It's
Red One?
No, Senna. It's the Senna.
Oh, Senna. Oh, I thought you said Santa.
No.
The racing thing.
The racing one, yeah. There was some really great use of the volume in that. I was really impressed by that. Again, because they're not trying to make it look hyper realistic. They're embracing, that vintage look, and that's what they were sort of going for. And they're getting macro shots on the eyes. And I saw some of the behind the scenes where they're shaking the guy's helmet around. Obviously.
Oh yeah,
so great.
The headache machine. Yeah, like they looked like they attached a drill with a off weight. Just gave it to him. I had a few friends like DM me that. They're like, "Is this what it's like now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." That's filmmaking. Nice. Sit in front of a TV and have your head wrenched off.
Everything shakes. Yeah.
I actually did just talk to Jomo the other day about Nickel Boys, and I'm just fascinated by the idea of like, how does a head move? Right? Like if it's first person, like you could just whip it around or whatever, but not only how does a head move, but how are you watching? On a big screen, it'll get real dizzying if you move quickly, but then on a small screen, it might feel too slow. And like,
I feel like the strobing, like I feel like they had to work out, they had to do so much planning for that film to make it work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think my comparison, like when I started watching it was, like Tree of Life, I think, like that sort of really, some of that beautiful stuff they do, and the jumping in to a real POV, like a shallow depth of field, long lens POV, and then coming back to like, those on the shoulder or, mounted, you're the head, you're watching the thing. It was trippy. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of those inserts, like they don't take you out of the idea that you're still POV. Like,
I think they did a lot of, I think they must have done a lot of, I don't know how long they prepped for, but I think they must have worked out a lot of that, because so much of it, the cinematography is the edit in so many ways.
Yeah. Like the one that stuck out to me was like when he's like flipping the history book or whatever, and he's got the like lynching fucking flip book in there. I'm like, it was the first time I went, oh, hey, we're actually, because I didn't know it was going to be a first person shoot. So I'm just, it was a press screening. So I was just like, oh shit. All right. So when it started doing that, I was like, all right, we're not going to sit there and have this be a gimmick. It like actually serves the story in a really great way.
For sure.
Yeah. Where was I was going somewhere with that. No, that's gone. All right. So do you have, between the last project I spoke to you about, the Totally Killer, and now what do you do between big shoots? Are you like a commercial guy traditionally, or
I do a bit of commercial, but I've just also done especially like while the strikes were on last year, I went to Europe and did a feature documentary.
Oh, sick.
Called Future Council. So that's we took 8 kids from around the world who are all very environmentally conscious, and put them on a yellow school bus and sort of drove them through Europe, and they're fronting up to Nestle and ING Bank and kind of really grilling them on their environmental policy. So that and we shot, we used like anamorphic lenses, and we shot on the Blackmagics, and we tried to really make it as cinematic as we could, for essentially an observational doc, but we're sort of trying some rainbow flares and beautiful nature environmental shots, some great drone work, and so that's doing the festival circuit at the moment.
Oh, nice, dude. Yeah, I never thought I would be a doc person, but I'm on 3 right now.
Oh, great.
Out of nowhere. Yeah. So now I'm like fascinated in how it's funny you say yellow bus, because that's such a, like, when I hear bus, I just think the yellow ones, but but that's not. How'd you get you took it to Europe? Did you have to import the bus?
They had it there, luckily, but then we converted it so it could run on biodiesel, so it was was all kosher for the film.
Yeah. If I remember from our last conversation, you are like a Blackmagic guy, right?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of stuff with them since like I was a 5D guy, I guess, like everyone. Like I came up with film, and it was lucky when I was at film school, we were still shooting on 35, on 16, cutting on Steamdex, all that sort of stuff. So I was lucky to be kind of at the end of that process and the start of digital. But when I came out, all the commercials I was shooting, all the music videos were 5D, and Magic Lantern and all that stuff, which was great for what it was. But then it was also,
so complicated,
such a pain in the butt, because you couldn't grade it, you couldn't push it anywhere. So when I, and obviously being in Australia, I saw those Blackmagic cameras, the little box ones, come out really early, and I was just like, this is amazing, like absolutely shit house to sound, but the pictures are incredible, and it's set up for you're shooting raw, I think 2.5K raw at that stage. And you can grade it, you can push it around and do whatever you like, and still fit all of your Canon lenses on there, and still get your shallow depth of field, and they had a global shutter for a while, and that's done, and but yeah, I've just sort of stuck with them over the years, not usually as my main camera, but I'll always have one in the kit for you know, if you do crash housing, you need something to bring something over for a shot. You know, we're not going to get that, you know, that overhead shot. We're just not going to make it on schedule. I'll throw it on a pipe and put it up there and throw a 14 mil on it. You know, I've found it been really handy. And again, they're made for post. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can grade them to look like whatever your main camera is really quite easily.
Yeah, there was a revelation for me, which was talking to Dan Stoloff, who shot The Boys.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, sometimes there would be a shot that we couldn't get the Venice. They couldn't afford a Rialto for that show. So he's like, I would just grab my Fujifilm X-T3 and just pop it up. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Just get the shot. You know, you need the shot. And if it's there for, you know, 5 seconds or whatever it is, you know, no one cares.
Yeah. He said there was like at least one X-T3 shot in like every episode.
There.
And it was his. Like, he didn't rent it, you know. So I've started putting mine in just in case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's better to have another camera body and not use it than need it, not have it. You know?
Yeah. And I assume in Australia, once you're born, they just give you a black magic. They're like, here you go, carry the culture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Those things are. Have you gotten your hands on that large format one?
The 17. No. I think they're still
the 18K.
Yeah, Greg Fraser's got one, and
of course he does.
But yeah, no, I haven't seen those. I think they're still, you know, at that early testing stage. But yeah, excited to see. I guess the other question with that, which is the same as, you know, the 265, you know, we went and did a little test demo of that, and it's like, how much data are they going to, you know, chew up? How could they handle that? Yeah, I'm all about getting those great images, but the repercussions of that, and even on a, you know, moderately sized feature, you've really got to kind of push to, you know, even to be shooting raw, you've got to have those discussions every time. And, you know, when they start saying it's X amount of terabytes per minute, yeah, people start getting a bit worried. So yeah, I think something's got to change in that side of things, the way we manage the data to, you know, to really make those viable.
Well, two things come to mind. One is, you know, one thing about digital that people often kind of bemoan is like, oh, the pace, you know, people just roll forever. And when we were shooting film, it was a little more, not diligent, intentional. It's like, well, if it's a terabyte a minute, you know, I bet they'll slow you down. let's not shoot the rehearsal. Let's actually. You know.
I don't think so. I think, you know, everyone's so used to that now. It's hard to put that, you know, back in the box. It's you know, people are so used to rolling and yeah, that discipline of like building up to the take and all that sort of thing. You know, there's very few directors who still are interested in that. You know, like stunts and things like that are different. And, you know, obviously what they originally, when the Alexa 65 came out, it was designed to be for plates and designed to be for, you know, bigger projects. So I think that'll always be a go. But waiting to see, you know, if they suddenly bring out, you know, a version of the 17K Blackmagic that you can shoot on little SSD drives, I'm like, come on, yeah, let's go for it, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be, you know, I mean, I've already got 1,000 drives with all my projects, you know, there's drives everywhere, you know, try to find the right project at the right time is almost impossible. So yeah, ranking all that data is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I know that Seagate just came out with, I think they're like 68 terabyte drives. Like they're hard drives, they're spinning drives, but they are boosted. I just had to, I finally hit the cap on my little in-homes RAID setup. So I had to replace all those. And unfortunately, my housing can only do 20 terabytes. So I'm only at 140. I've only got 140 terabytes in my house.
You're doing good.
Yeah. I never throw anything. I mean, like, I know it's kind of, you're supposed to like charge the client for like going back and finding it. But it's like, I got everything since high school. Like,
right.
You know, But then again, the XL2, actually, that's not true. DV was pretty heavy. DV was and well, maybe it's different now, but, well, that hour fucking flew by.
It's great.
I literally looked down and I went, oh no. All right. Well, it's a really fun show that you've made, man. It was really cool to, you know, it sucks when I get to have to interview someone for a TV show and it's like, I don't have 12 hours, but I had already seen it because my girlfriend was like, here, I'm watching this. Oh, okay, cool. You know, so
yeah. And they've been doing a lot of, you know, publicity on like the talk shows and things like that. So I think that's kind of their market. You know, they're trying to find the young female audience. So,
yeah.
You know, fingers crossed it all goes well and we get to do it again.
Yeah, I look forward to it, man. Well, definitely. I'd love to talk to you about the future council if you can give me like a screener or something like that. And,
Yeah, for sure. I'll keep you in the loop as it happens.
cool. Appreciate it, man. Well, again, it was great seeing you again, and have a good one.
Well, dude. Cheers, Kenny. All the best, man.
Take care, brother. Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production, produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to frameandrefpod.com and clicking on the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.